Welcome everybody to the I'm going to steal it, must-see show about professional wrestling with this guy in it. Welcome to Jonesamania. This is the first episode of a new show, which I detailed last week. If you saw that, thanks for watching. If not, it's cool. We're covering all things pro wrestling on this channel, this show, this experience. And let's get right down to it. Today's opinion piece is entitled The State of Tag Team Wrestling. Now, as a kid in the 80s, growing up in the 90s, tag team wrestling has always been a must-see thing to me. In the 80s, the NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, whatever you want to call it, was heavily tag team influenced. The early 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, WWF was tag team related. Now I feel that in the modern day of big name professional wrestling, that's not the case anymore, which is sad really. I mean, what's more interesting than a singles bout? A tag team bout, because there's 4 guys, or 6 depending on what they have. That's something that needs to come back actually. You know what? 6-man tag team championships. I know Ring of Honor has it, which is pretty damn cool. And they should probably bring that back to other companies. But tag team wrestling to me is important. And unfortunately, in the wilds of corporate WWE mentality, it doesn't seem to be as important. Because tag teams are always relegated to pre-shows. They're always in the background. They're always not featured like they should be. I mean, when I was a kid, you had a lot of strong tag teams. You had guys who were tag teams in general, tag team specialists. You had the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors. You had the Rock and Roll Express. You had the Hart Foundation. The Rockers, well, that's kind of a different thing, because Shawn Michaels was a big enough star to do it on his own. You had Demolition. You had crazy tag teams. And the fact that they don't focus on that anymore is kind of sad, in my opinion, because there's a lot to tag team wrestling that's good. And I'd like to go ahead and throw out a couple I think most of the tag teams I've thrown out are some of my favorites over the years. But then you have, not modern day. You had King's Wrestling. You had Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli, now known as Cassius Ohno and Cesaro, who were primarily singles wrestlers nowadays. But you have these guys that are stuck into a tag team because they don't have anything else to do with them. Like the Hollywood Blondes in the 90s. I didn't know what to do with Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. Let's put them together. They became one of the hottest acts in the business, and they broke them up. It's stupid. The New Day, probably one of the biggest examples of tag teams, but they're kind of 3 individual guys that they just said, we don't have anything to do, let's stick it together. But they made it work, that's a good thing. The Bar, and Sheamus and Cesaro, again, 2 singles guys, mostly, who got put in a tag team. They made it work. The Hardys, who go back and forth, now they're on different shows. It's weird. I don't know. But just my opinion. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. That's the best thing about it. But there's lots of good tag team wrestling out there that you need to go check out. Especially in the Indies. Especially in Japan. That's just my opinion on the matter. Take it however you want to. And since we're on the topic of tag teams, I'd like to share with you a couple of my personal favorites over the years and growing up in watching wrestling. So my top tag team to me when I was a kid was the Hart Foundation. Like I said earlier, I loved the work. I loved Jim Neidhart. I loved Bret Hart. They complemented each other well. You had strength, power, speed, and technical ability. Bret Hart became his own, star, but it was always cool, especially when they brought the Foundation back in the late 90s. And they built like a faction war thing going on. I thought that was always a cool thing. The Road Warriors / Legion of Doom, loved them. They were 2 guys that just beat the hell out of everybody, and I always thought that was really fun. In the 90s, I liked Harlem Heat, Booker T, Stevie Ray. They were fun. They were always really, really good. The Steiner Brothers were good, kind of in the Road Warrior vein where they would beat the hell out of everybody. But they also had a technical side and showed off some incredible athleticism, which Scott Steiner did before he got, a little bit bigger. Other tag teams I liked, Midnight Express upon retrospect, because I was really young when they were a team. They're a lot of fun to watch. They kind of, revolutionized the form of tag team wrestling. which, you know, a few teams did. They do double team moves a lot and stuff like that. It's another really good one. The rockers I liked for a little bit when I was a kid. They weren't my favorite, but they were pretty cool. I thought there's a couple really good teams. The Eliminators and ECW were fun. The Dudleys, you know, the second greatest tag team. Actually, you know what? The Dudleys might be the greatest tag team of all time now. They might edge out Road Warriors just a little bit for sheer impact on the business, you know. You can't really go wrong with guys that can do a little bit of everything. The Hardys were great. Edge and Christian were fantastic in the late 90s. Modern day, not so much, because like I said, you know, WWE doesn't like to focus on stuff like that. I did like in Ring of Honor in the mid-2000s, Austin Aries and Roderick Strong were a hell of a tag team, but they were part of a faction, so I don't really know if it counts. But those are just a few I like. Another really good one was Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. They were tag team champions in the NWA and WCW, and then they went to the WWF in the late 80s and became the Brainbusters and killed it there. So, you know, those are just a few of my favorites. If you want to throw any ideas of favorites of yours in the comments, let me know. We'll discuss. So that's what this show is about, discussion and talks about stuff like that. You know, I love talking to people about wrestling. I love nerding out about wrestling. So leave something down and we'll open the discussion forums in the comment section. Tell me who you like. Alright folks, and one final bit of news. I have been contacted by a wrestling company known as New Dawn Wrestling. They're looking for a guy to do commentary and try to kind of show off some stuff via this show, which I think is a very interesting move. It's in no way a made-up federation started by me, so, you know, just saying, it's legit. But I was talking to the promoter the other day, and I'm already causing trouble, which is really weird. I don't know why. There's some guy that doesn't like me already. I haven't met him yet. I haven't even had a face-to-face with him, but he legit dislikes me for no reason. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure we'll work it out and remain professional. So thanks everybody for watching Jonesamania. I'll see you next time, where we're going to be talking about most underrated workers and a list that I have prepared for that. We'll do that next week. Same Jones time, same Jones channel. Have a good one. Well, well, well. Looks like Mr. Jones has finally come to New Dawn. And you're right. There is someone who doesn't like you. And you're looking at him. My name is C.R. Smith. And I'm what you call a guy that knows a bit of things about a lot of things. And I've been here for a while. Sure, you may have this slight following, your little House of Jones for YouTube, but this is the wrestling business, pal. You may be a fan, but that doesn't mean you know anything about it. Now me, I'm a manager. And the guys I manage, well, they don't suck. Now, I know what you're doing right now is you're looking in the mirror and you're wondering why this guy looks a little bit like you. Well, I don't know, pal. I just don't. All I know is I'm older than you, I'm better than you, and I'm smarter than you. Now, if you want to lend your talents to the commentary booth, or you want to do stuff with this company, you're going to have to learn how to work with others properly. And I don't feel like your attitude would be a good thing for this company. So I'm putting you on notice, Jones. I'm putting you on notice. Mess with me, and no one's even gonna know what Jonesamania is. I'll see you soon. Did you guys see that? What the fuck was that? Why the hell did he look like me? I have to get to the bottom of this. Let's see what happens.